What's up, guys? Before we jump into it, just want to let you know that there's a flash 30% off discount with code ESPRESSO over at gfuel.com. With new releases like Sour Faceberry and cans like Sour Blue Chug Rug out, if you're interested, now's as good a time as any to check them out. Links in the description below, but anyways, let's get back to the content at hand. Listen, I'll be 100% honest with you. There's not a ton to discuss in Modern Warfare and Warzone right now that's breaking news or must-know information. Season 4's launch has been a little lackluster comparative to other seasonal launches this year with the game, but in the meantime, trying to plan and prep content for you on relevant topics, the idea and discussion of the future of Warzone was something that popped into my head and then was spitballed in a sort of roundtable discussion format as of yesterday when I was streaming with my friends Ink Slasher, Immortal, and Lazy, to which the idea is the possibilities and potential outcomes for what we may see in the coming year, and further, still don't have a shred of credible certainties. Sure, that stuff will be revealed in time, but the ideas that are presented are very much so something I want to discuss with you. So in this video, it's not going to be anything in terms of groundbreaking, you need to know this, and this right now, but instead will be a casual discussion about the possibilities of what we may see unfold in front of us over the course of the next 6 months or so. To that extent, I greatly encourage you, let me know your thoughts down below. I'd seriously love to get a communal discussion going on the idea of this moving forward in the video, and as well, if you are new to the channel, feel free to subscribe to stay up to date with all things Modern Warfare and Warzone, and of course, as things progress, content going into COD 2020 as well. But anyways, let's get into it. First, I think we need to start the discussion off with a little bit of the initial plans for Warzone to get the scope of what the future may hold. Warzone, of course, was a huge undertaking for the game, not just only Modern Warfare, but also on the business side of things with Activision. Warzone was teased, as confirmed by, I believe, what narrative director Taylor Kurosaki said all the way back in the initial reveal trailer for Modern Warfare, but at the time we had zero idea that was actually the case. We thought maybe it was something for campaign, as with everything else in that trailer. During the progression of builds that the public got to experience, we learned a little bit more and more each time through data mining about Battle Royale for Modern Warfare, so much so to the point that Reddit user Senesalo leaked just about the entirety of BR and some plunder on launch of Modern Warfare in early October, which, if you're keeping track, was 5 months before the official launch of the mode. Not only that, but we also saw the mode was kept under heavy secrecy, having been dodged at almost any avenue the question was brought up. First time I remember back was in an interview with Joe Secott and Taylor Kurosaki. Point blank, they were asked about a Battle Royale, saying then that it wouldn't fit in the box and their launch focus was building a kick-ass MP game, which is a PR way to circumnavigate the explanation of it's coming but not until later. All the way up to things like one-on-one developer talks at events, hinting that it could be coming but was never actually answered. Again, just dodged in a way that more so avoided the question. All that, and then like the point of Call of Duty 2020, there really wasn't any marketing traditionally leading up to it, where up until about launch, I'd say the only things we first saw were about a week out from them actually introducing it on official channels. But mix that in with how much focus and attention they wanted on it from a developmental perspective, and the fact that it was the first mainline Call of Duty we're offering to be free to play outside of COD Mobile and COD Online in Asia, and you've got yourself perhaps one of the biggest investments into Call of Duty that's ever been made. Arguably more than even the golden age of Call of Duty back in COD 4 up until maybe Black Ops 2, with player counts and unique users far exceeding the sale numbers of the highest peaking titles. Black Ops 1 just now eclipsing that long-standing king of Modern Warfare 3, both boasting over 30 million copies sold. But with a reported 60 to 70 million unique users since launch, I'd confidently say that this is the biggest investment Call of Duty has ever made. But here's the thing where it gets weird. That sort of investment is a huge undertaking for Call of Duty. We know that Activision may likely never give up that annual release schedule of Call of Duty, and that's something that's been met with either criticism or praise depending on who you ask. But the prospect in the longevity and proper value to in-game items is unquestionably devalued at that point when it becomes an obsolete at max a year later after its introduction. But when you take that largest investment in Call of Duty historically and theoretically release another game just 7 to 8 months after the launch of that investment, that's definitely something that doesn't make a ton of sense. And since the release of Warzone, that in particular has been kind of alleviated a little bit, as it's been revealed in interviews with narrative director Taylor Kurosaki that Warzone will connect the franchise and the various sub-branches such as Modern Warfare and the Black Ops franchises in the future. And that's the vision that it had, to be that one constant of the franchise going forward, receiving updates and support alongside the mainline premium launches such as Modern Warfare and maybe a Modern Warfare sequel in the future, and whatever's next in 2020, presumably by Treyarch. Warzone's here to stay as its own product, its own application, and supported community in a free-to-play setting. Now that's great and all, and that answers the big question of, well, is that investment really worth it? Because yes, you solve the irrelevancy problem that is proposed every single October or November when millions of players migrate to the next new thing. But at the same time, you also introduce many more questions. You don't get closure, you just get further down that rabbit hole with it. If Warzone is going to be the one thing going forward, that one arrow through all the games connecting them all together, what does that mean for weaponry? What does that mean for game physics? What does that mean for map locale? What does that mean for cosmetic items that players buy? Surely these questions can't just simply be answered because when you break them down, a ton of things are fundamentally different depending on the game. Weaponry? Well, you wouldn't expect to see World War II weaponry or far future weaponry like the EM1 or the Rift D9 in a game that has a selling point of being realistic in modern day at launch. Surely we wouldn't see a chance of getting a riot shield or an M4A1 out of a chest spawn when somebody could pull a loadout drop weapon of like an L4 Siege or something absurd that doesn't match the genre at all. We also surely wouldn't see an oversaturation of weapon variants of down the line multi-game weaponry with dozens upon dozens of ground spawns. But that's just one thing here. Game physics is another huge one. Infinity Ward games, Treyarch games, if Sledgehammer ever comes back into the mainline mix, Sledge games, they're all fundamentally different on such massive scales. Sure, it's Call of Duty, so year to year you can jump in and feel relatively no difference, but there definitely is that brief learning period where you learn movement, where you learn gun mechanics and things like that. Going from, say, the G-Slide in Black Ops 3 to not the G-Slide in Infinite Warfare, going from infinite static sprinting speed to attack sprint system from Black Ops 4 to Modern Warfare, there's so many things on the basis of core fundamentals that are different between games that having one uniform application and one uniform landing place would be hard to do. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's definitely an undertaking and a half at that. What about map locale though? How does that work when you have classic Infinity Ward legacy locations all in Verdansk, but how do you shift the map to include places popularized maybe with Blackout, a Nuketown Island, a Buried, so that you encompass the Treyarch side of things? That really wouldn't blend well, not only just from a continuity perspective, but also from an art perspective. Nuketown, for instance, that would need a severe color palette change to fit Infinity Ward's art style that we see normally now within Warzone. Same thing goes for a lot of other things within Treyarch titles. Those color palettes, those art directions are usually much more colorful, more flashy in Treyarch games as opposed to Infinity Ward. And I'm not saying that's bad, but it would be something that is just different and hard to encompass all in one singular location. Cosmetically, another thing that sure could provide the long-awaited value for things like paid camos year over year is the ability to keep them playable. But I also, coming back to those fundamental differences, don't see how that would happen, or at the very least, see how it wouldn't be a problem. When you talk to the two ends of the spectrum about how camos should and can work within game, some want them to be realistic, sticking to that design approach similar to Modern Warfare. Nothing too over the top, nothing that is in your face, it's just a camo, something that is believable. Sure, it could be flashy here and there, but when you look at the other side of the spectrum, some believe, say, Black Ops 4 perhaps was the best camo system that we've ever seen, introducing camos that literally changed and animated on your gun in real time as you got more kills. Assuming nothing changes and Treyarch decides to still have fun cosmetically like that, how in the world do you bleed those things together and put them into one singular map? That's the stuff that becomes incredibly hard to answer, or is it? I'm sure that if I sat here and I discussed things with you more and more, I could easily come up with a few other explanations, but I see maybe perhaps 2, maybe 3 outcomes here with Warzone in the far future. Not like Season 5, but I'm talking more so with more Call of Duty games released. Maybe this time next year, this time in 2 years from now. There's the theory perhaps that we just end up seeing everything shift out. Maybe Modern Warfare in Verdansk had its time. Since March and maybe come the launch of the next game, that live event completely shifts us, and it's that pivoting point. Maybe the live event or perhaps a cutscene ends our time as we know it in Warzone and shifts us entirely out of Modern Warfare and into something different, shifting us maybe into a Cold War focused approach like we see in the bunkers, perhaps that could lead to the tied together rumors of a Cold War Call of Duty that may be coming out with 2020. Perhaps that happens, and while Modern Warfare is the launching point of Warzone, it wouldn't see as much light of day as the other games in the future taking advantage of a full year. Maybe we shift out to an entirely different time period, an entirely different map, instead then being told in the perspective of a Cold War game, presumably a Black Ops game. Maybe we don't see that though. Maybe we end up seeing the multiple blendings of different games as time progresses, and not a hand-over-hand transition in a literal sense, but instead a melting pot of games. Long term, that could present problems design-wise, and sure, from even a balancing perspective, making sure things are usable and don't blow each other out of the water year over year as more and more things are introduced, but perhaps we do see a melting pot of sorts. Maybe, just maybe, we see a map introduced that presents itself in a manner that has aspects of each game, having classic Treyarch and Infinity Ward locations. But I'll be totally honest with you, I'm not entirely sure, especially not as of recently, because in an interesting turn of events, it was reported by an industry reporter with a decent track record in the past, Jeff Grubb. He mentioned that in shocking news, Blackout is going to return in some form with Black Ops this year. And that's something that I'm sure a lot of people have a few different reactions about. Possibly they're happy. I loved Blackout. I loved the way that it played. I love the feel of it, and I'd be happy to see it return in some way. Possibly, though, some could be confused because, as we mentioned, Warzone is that biggest investment probably ever for Call of Duty. And I'm sure there's many other feelings in between, but in some form, how does that manage? How does that figure that in some form Blackout will be back where it's not necessarily the full thing? Perhaps, sure, it is that previously mentioned theory of some aspects of the map being in play, being incorporated into Verdansk, but what in my mind, having meticulously broken down the tree plot of things that would be tough to manage as a combination between multiple franchises, my mind immediately goes to Warzone instead being almost the idea for Call of Duty, the brand in essence of battle royales for Call of Duty, and instead not being one uniform map, but instead being one uniform application, with sub-applications and different ways you can play the game included in that. Warzone would then just be the umbrella. So as it stands right now, you have the ability to jump into Warzone for Modern Warfare, and that's the ability to jump into Verdansk. You also have that from the free-to-play application, but what if instead we have that Warzone application that allows you to choose which one you want to boot into, either Modern Warfare side of things on the map of Verdansk, or the Black Ops side of things, or whatever map that may be, perhaps the Blackout map for 2020, and that's how it's going to be coming in some regard. Similar to a map selection or queue in PUBG that we've seen there and also in other BRs as well. While each of the mainline, maybe premium or full paid versions of that just have that section for Warzone and that designated map within each. So Modern Warfare, you jump only into Verdansk. Theoretically, let's say Black Ops Cold War, you jump into the Blackout map for that. You don't cross over unless you have the specific Warzone application, which is free to play for all users. So those that want to move on to the next game, that new next thing, they have the opportunity to whenever they buy that full premium game. But if you're somebody new and just is coming into it, you can play either or. You can play Verdansk or Blackout. And of course, it would be cool if you want to jump into, say, Verdansk from Call of Duty 2020, instead of jumping into the theoretical Blackout, you then transition applications to the Warzone application, not Call of Duty 2020. Very similar to how Modern Warfare Remastered and Infinite Warfare had those jumping off points where you could boot up the application from the menu to go back and forth between those. That's kind of the way that I see this culminating, and how I see this being something that transcends one singular Call of Duty, one singular year of Call of Duty, and instead becomes its own thing, its uniform idea or brand of battle royales for Call of Duty. And to me, I think that solves perhaps all of the problems that are presented. You have the game physics because you're booting into an application specific to that game's physics. You have the cosmetics that are tethered to that game's cosmetic design approach. You have the locale and the weaponry of that game's specific locale and weaponry. To me, I think that's perhaps the most clear and concise way that we can see Warzone transcend time and be its own thing, while also being that straight through arrow connecting everything. So of course, will we know this answer anytime soon? More than likely not. I would expect as time progresses, we learn more and more that may clear up the picture of what we're looking at once we step back and take a look at it at a distance. But for right now, it's all theory, it's all conjecture, but it's something that I think is definitely some good food for thought. So that's where we're going to leave you with it. I'd love to again hear your thoughts and feedback on what you think of this idea, whether I hit the nail on the head and that makes sense to see it as such, or if you think there's a better way to approach this, something that maybe explains how this will be something that goes on independent of any specific year-over-year game, maybe a little bit better. Anyways, let me get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below, but hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare, updates, news, information, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. We got you covered here on the channel. So if any of that interests you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, there's the best places to get content outside of YouTube. Practically live on both those. So if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.